TPCSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app.
2,000 years long, we will never settle. Hard days, no rain with a heavy metal. No time, no fail, won't stop here. Like a torch to a flame when it burns hot.
Sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and it's that time of the week for Four Men in a Box, NCAA Insiders, and Adam Trigger at Wager Talk to talk some college football on the half hour. Shout out to the best producer in the world. I couldn't do this Four Men in a Box without you, Mr. Elijah Cox. Hope you had a great Christmas and New Year's. The Irish eyes are smiling. I don't think we have enough airtime for Nick as he came in with his entourage, his limousine, I'm telling you, we were texting back and forth watching his timeline. Couldn't have wrote a better script to end the half, and then the kickoff return. I think he probably shut the game off and he was wondering what the line would be for Penn State, but we'll get to that in a second, of course. Shout out to our proud partners and sponsorships. Of course, it's WagerWire. Head on over to Google Play, download that app. It is free. Travis, Zach, myself, Amber, Holly, Jake Berry, Matt, the list is endless. Come on board. I promise you, 2025 will be epic. Viva Tequila, Seltzer, CT Bets, Adam, the rest of that team, Austin, second to none. The East Coast is cuckoo for coconut. And AtlantaSteaksAndSeafood.com. Head on over to Facebook. Follow Terry Smith while you're there. Jump on over to AtlantaSteaksAndSeafood.com. Chops, steaks, seafood, appetizers. Start the new year eating correctly. He's got 4 monthly subscriptions. Hell of a deal. Hit the button, send. It'll be on your doorstep in 3 days, and then every month it will be there. Make it easy on yourself. Health in 2025. So without further ado, Elijah, let's bring him in. Good afternoon, good morning, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Jeffrey.
Good morning, Jeff.
New Year. See how unbearable Nick was going to be today.
You know, and we were having some great fun. And the funny thing is, I don't know if we had enough airtime for what Nick, Nick is really, honestly, I'm proud for the fact that they were playing for their lives after week 2, after 28.5-point favorites against Northern Illinois. With not being in a conference, no conference championship, every game was a playoff game. And this team seemed to have gotten strong, and stronger. And yesterday, we know, we're not going to be Monday morning quarterbacks here. This is not the powerhouse Georgia team that we have seen in the past. A quarterback that didn't have a lot of reps. And the real eye test, very simply, is they never replaced Brock Bowers or Ladd McConkey. Look what those two gentlemen are doing in the NFL. And this wide receiving core had more drops than I can't even think of a good thing to say. So I'm going to just throw the mic right over to Nick and let him get it all out to the world.
Yeah, I don't even know where to start. It was more of a professional performance than I was even expecting. I thought Notre Dame would kind of take care of business on the back end, like the secondary especially. I thought they'd have a really hard time throwing against Notre Dame. That's where Gunnar Stockton, to be honest, played well. Like, he was not Georgia's issue. Like, he made some throws where that just right on the money, like a couple down the sideline. He was hitting the slants. The bigger surprise to me was that Notre Dame's undersized defensive line was able to kind of do what they wanted against Georgia's offensive line. And I'll give it more to Al Golden, the defensive coordinator, in having a plan where he knew he was undersized, and he was able to he basically told his defensive line, stand the guys up front, and then we have 2 NFL linebackers and let them just kind of cover the edges, which took all of Georgia's run game away. And then you had Gunnar Stockton kind of forced into bad situations. Like, think of last night, how many times were they in 3rd down and long as opposed to 3rd and 2? Like, every time they were in 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, they were able to hand the ball off to ETN, and he was able to get a first down. But it was just those drives where they kind of put them in bad situations. I'll say, like, I knew we were in a great spot. I texted my dad. Like, it was after that first pass interference on the very first drive, and then Georgia already tried to run a wide receiver reverse on a first down. I told Dad, I was like, okay, we are in a good spot where Georgia's already feeling like they're going to have to run some trickeration and just not run straight ahead and try to bully Notre Dame. And it basically turned out like that the rest of the game. And I know there's going to be a lot of talk. Gunnar Stockton, backup quarterback. Like I just said, he wasn't the issue. Georgia couldn't run the ball. They couldn't block. Like, they couldn't pass block for him. And then on the other side of the ball, like, Notre Dame didn't do much offensively. As soon as Jeremiah Love got hurt, Riley Leonard had to kind of take over, which was great to see. Like, he was able to use his legs, but it wasn't an impressive showing by Notre Dame. I think all three of us agreed, like, on our show, that it was going to be low scoring. We expected it to be something like a 2017 type of game. That's pretty much what it turned into. But yeah, just an exciting for Notre Dame. Got over the hump, I know, as Q was going to say. So that was nice to see. And especially, like, on the coaching end, Marcus Freeman absolutely just putting them in a blender in that fourth quarter with 2 minutes left made me laugh. So yeah, just great performance. Pumped going ahead against Penn State.
Hey, Q, either Penn State or Notre Dame will be playing in the championship game. I didn't have that on my bingo card. I can be honest. I had the Georgia Notre Dame game. The way the numbers read in my eyes, first 1-23 won that game. Well, Notre Dame got to 23 and Georgia never sniffed that. I'm looking at the opening number here. And it was 1.5. I saw Notre Dame 1.5. I saw some ones. It's now 1.5 with a 47.5 at the Circa. Good morning to Mr. Benson and Mr. Stevens. Don't worry, Matt will be there sooner than later, so they'll have the limo ready for you, Matt. But I knew when Notre Dame opened 1.5 against Georgia at the Circa, they wanted that Georgia money, and they got it. Georgia got pushed all the way to 2, and then by kickoff, Notre Dame. I'm not feeling that number to tell me that they're begging for Penn State money, because that number to me is a little lower as a Notre Dame backer than I would have expected and liked. Thoughts on the game that you saw yesterday and the initial open number for next week?
Yeah, I saw 1.5 Notre Dame, and I jumped all over the money line at -122. I think Notre Dame should be like 2.5, maybe opening, hoping that you could get some money to push it to that 3 hook and maybe draw in money on that side. Here's the thing, Penn State, and I said it on our show, I thought Aller threw the ball really well. In his game, the problem was his receivers couldn't catch it if it hit him in the face. The running game that worked so well against Boise isn't going to work the same against Notre Dame. Notre Dame's been in a playoff mode, and for Penn State, this is a game where they necessarily haven't been challenged, maybe the way Notre Dame has against Georgia, because I thought Georgia initially started very strong up front, and then they just kind of got wore down at the end. Gunnar Stockton just wasn't able to make those critical plays when it mattered. They couldn't get the running game. Well, I kind of feel like that's the same for Penn State. I don't know if Aller's receivers, even if he's throwing dimes, I don't know that they can make those catches on a better secondary than Boise State. Then I look at the front. They're going to play a very similar front that, Georgia presented itself. Both are far superior to SMU and Boise State. So when I look at this, I actually think you're getting a steal at the 1.5 and the minus 122 money line on Notre Dame. I don't think this game's that close, to be honest. I think you could see another 23-10, type game here because, like I said, I just think every matchup when you look at it on the field is a win for Notre Dame.
Matt, the perfect storm, and the way I'm really trying to read this, the public remembers what they saw last. And for 2 weeks, we've seen the real Ohio State team beat up Tennessee and just rip the heart out of Oregon. And this Notre Dame team against the almighty Georgia and the SEC just absolutely dominated them. And so now, whether it's James Franklin or Notre Dame, as Nick started the segment, finally got over that hump. Well, one of these two teams is now going to the promised land into the championship game. Matt, thoughts on what you saw in that game? And I'm telling you right now, I would have rather have seen Notre Dame open minus 2.5, and then let's get that Penn State money. I know it's Friday. We got some time on it. I'm smelling a little fishy line here. Maybe I'm a little wrong here, but Matt, what are you saying?
Yeah, I actually leaned Penn State. I think the problem, Riley Leonard had 90 passing yards against a bad Georgia defense. I think Jalen Milroe put up 400 against this offense. I think Aller is an underrated quarterback, and I think he's going to be able to move the ball against Notre Dame. I thought Georgia was kind of phony all season long, even with Carson Beck. I don't think they were a national championship team. I think Penn State is really good. If you throw out the fact that James Franklin can't win the big game, I still am not sure if this is considered a big game for him, albeit that all of the chips are on the table, so to speak. And then in that other game, Texas, Ohio State, there's got to be some buyback at this point. I think we're at 6.5, getting points with Texas. But are we really going to sit here and I'm the only problem that I'm seeing with me taking Ohio State and Penn State is that I don't think the committee wants an all Big Ten championship. But you know what? We've had an all SEC championship. I think the Big Ten is the best team or the best conference in the country right now, and that may be how it plays out. Now, I don't think Texas has a chance to beat Ohio State with the way that they're playing. Notre Dame would be the one to buck that trend, but right now I think Penn State's the better team. I think they're sound on offense and defense, whereas Notre Dame they're really good at running the ball. Riley Leonard can do a lot with his legs, but if push comes to shove and James Franklin stacks that box, can Notre Dame beat them through the air? And I don't know if they can.
The first year of the 12 teams, there was quirky with, Boise State, Arizona State getting buys. We're sitting in the semis, and the number 1, the number 2, the number 3, and the number 4 seed are all gone. The bye teams all lost. The favorites 8-0 straight up, 7-1 against the spread. Of all the games, I think the biggest shocker to me wasn't Ohio State beating Oregon. It was how they did it, and they just ripped the heart out. The facial expressions, the head downs, that just dominated. And it was like if Lanning could have waved the white flag in the second quarter or in the middle of the third, I think they would have walked off and went to the showers. Nick, thoughts on what the hell happened to Oregon?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was. I think Ohio State, ever since that Michigan game, just that kind of lit a fire under them. It seems like they're really playing for Ryan Day. It kind of shows that, hey, maybe our fan base isn't pumped about keeping him, but we want him here. And they've been playing great. It also, Chip Kelly has just been in his bag. It's like, where was this all season? Like, why have they just now all of a sudden decided, hey, look, we have 3 NFL receivers. Now we're going to start using them. Like, why did they? I don't know how they just discovered them. It's like practice 2 weeks ago. They said, oh my gosh, look how good Jeremiah Smith is. So that's kind of where that has gone. Kind of start where you began was, yes, all 4 bye teams lost, but it can kind of be approached a couple ways. I know me and Q mentioned this in our text group last night. Is all 4 bye teams lost, but also all 4 favorites won. So you can look at it that way. And then we mentioned the seeding last week on our show, and now you can look at the seeding was wrong, as we said, but you still have 3 of probably the 4 best teams that are in the semifinals. And then you have Penn State, who is probably, we could say, is the 6th, 7th, or 8th. So it's not like it's this out of kind of nowhere, like, yes, the 1, 2, 3, and 4 seeds lost. It's still the probably 1, 2, 3, and like 5, 6, 7 teams are in. So it can kind of be looked at and approached a couple different ways.
I think it's just a broken seeding system.
Yep, exactly.
Altogether. I mean, Oregon did everything they were supposed to do this season and got slotted in the hardest path to make it to the national championship. That shouldn't have been the case, because I think Oregon and Notre Dame are probably playing in the semifinals if you don't match them up against Ohio State.
Yeah, it should have been Oregon playing Boise, and it should have been Georgia playing Arizona State, and then from there,
Well, I think you have to pick the automatic qualifier. It is what it is. That's fine, but you have to pick your 12 teams and then seed them. You can't.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing: Notre Dame should not have been outside of a 4 seed, and they were, because of a stupid rule that they created. Instantly is a flaw. Like, they were one of the 4 best teams, and they get punished because of that. You've got to pick your top 12, then say, okay, out of this 12, let's sit here as a committee and rank them. Take everything we know about these teams and do it. That way you don't have the seeding issue. That way Notre Dame, even though I think they should be in a conference, they don't get penalized for not being in a conference. So they've got to structure this in a better way, because another point, you shouldn't have your 4 teams on bye as underdogs. That's just unheard of. You would never see that in the NCAA tournament on basketball side. So why are we seeing it? It's like they didn't realize not only does the FCS have a system in place, but the college basketball has a system in place. It's like you didn't even look at either side of the table to say, hey, you guys got any input? We're thinking about putting in a playoff here. What's your thoughts? Where did you see with some good ideas, bad ideas? It was like, oh, screw it. We're just going to wing this. We'll figure it out. It was pretty wild.
Well, and the funny thing is, you guys are spot on here, is once Ohio State lost to Michigan and Notre Dame beat USC, Oregon was the number 1 team in the country. How was Notre Dame not the number 2 team in the country?
I agree.
It made 0 sense, and they've been picking that through. And if it wasn't for the second half heroics and everyone's favorite guy in college football, Mr. Scatterbo, then they would have said, after every blowout, Indiana didn't deserve to be in there. SMU didn't deserve to be in there. Boise State didn't deserve to be in there.
Oregon didn't deserve to be in there. Yes,
Exactly.
I mean, you're going to have that. I think Arizona State should have beaten Texas. They got jobbed on that no targeting penalty that would have sealed it.
I do agree with that. I do, and I think while they're in the headset, they didn't want a winner to be potentially decided on a targeting call. And the funny thing is, their field goal kicker was no cinch to make. I don't care if it was a 20-yard field goal. That guy was. I could have went out there and maybe had a chance to make that. I wouldn't have made it though. But but my point is, that guy was as it was.
Yeah.
If you're going to call it for 15 weeks, I understand you don't want to end a controversial call, but I think that might have been one of the most least controversial calls that we've seen in the entire season.
Yeah.
And for them to make the decision officially that it was no targeting, and then Kenny Dillingham walks out to midfield. He says, was my player defenseless. And you could see plain as day, the referee says yes. Okay, well, that's the basis of the rule. So say yes definitively to the head coach, but say we're still not calling it. I don't care if you didn't want that headline of having the, oh, well, they won because of a weird call. That was the right call. Everybody would have understood that. Texas fans, maybe not, but whatever. It was plain as day. Give the kicker a chance to make it or miss it, and then we can play on. If he misses it, so be it. But they got absolutely jobbed there, not defending how they played in the first half, but they deserved a shot to win the game, and I feel like they got that stolen from them. I think Arizona State was the best small team there all season long, in comparison to Boise and those other teams, Indiana, and they got absolutely robbed.
Bucks forever. ASU got screwed. Forks up. No, they did get screwed, and that was the talk of social media the whole time there. I agree with that. I'll stay there for a second. Nick, I'll give you the question. From an eye test, you are now a GM of an NFL team. Ashton Jeanty or Scatterbo? Who you taking?
It's still Ashton Jeanty. It's also who, like, college wise, you can that's where it kind of evens out a little bit. But the way the NFL is played, I don't think Scatterbo, like everybody in like defensive linemen, would be faster than him in the NFL, and I think that's where kind of his downfall would be. He's going to be a fun like H-back, like a Taysom Hill type of player, I think, and he'll definitely be used and valuable. But I think Ashton Jeanty, with just the breakaway speed, the ability to like broke more tackles than anybody else in the country this year, I think he's still more valuable NFL wise because he fits better in that type of play.
You?
I'm opposite. I think Scatterbo, while he is a little bit slower, I think he's more versatile. He kind of reminds me of like a slower version of Christian McCaffrey, whereas I look at Jeanty as kind of this, bulldozer. And then when you look at the teams he's played, he really hadn't played a good defense all year until he played Penn State. And those guys are still slower than your average NFL defense. And he just absolutely manhandled, overwhelmed. You could see his frustration. Like, I've never been, hit like this in a game. I've never been swarmed like that. Cam Scatterbo rose up to the occasion against a decent defense in Texas who was really good all year. They're really fast. Another comparable style team to Penn State. And that guy rose to the occasion and made halftime adjustments. And we saw the phenom that he became in the second half. I just think you have a little more versatility with Scatterbo than you would Jeanty. That was kind of alarming to me to see that attitude from him.
Matt?
Yeah, I think I'm going Scatterbo, but it also depends on the situation. If you put Scatterbo on an Andy Reid team and let him play around with that offense, that's deadly. But I think you're talking about like Christian McCaffrey Jr. and Saquon Barkley Jr. I mean, these guys are – I think they're both going to have very successful NFL careers. So I don't think you can go wrong with either one.
If you had to pick.
Do what?
Jeanty, to me, like I would just say, I think he fits on like a Ravens style team. Very good front line.
I think Genty's the safer pick.
Where do you think he fits though, NFL wise? Like if he goes to Carolina, that's it. That's his career. But
if anybody who goes to Carolina right now, it's their career.
I mean, hey, CMC went there. I just feel like you have more versatility with Scatterbo. I think Jeanty has to go into a very good offensive line run system.
Yeah, if Scatterbo goes to a really high-powered offensive team that has a good quarterback, they would be absolutely deadly.
I'm going to ask Matt this question here. Preseason, pre-flop, actually even after a couple of losses, we talked about a value. Who's a team that you wanted in the dance that could be the most dangerous? And I think it was about a month ago, maybe 5 weeks ago, me and Matt pulled the Ole Miss card, and then they puked all over themselves. Lane Kiffin being Lane Kiffin, and Dart was just throwing darts. And again, these bowl games are for entertainment purposes only. Alabama, 18-point favorites, lose outright to Michigan. Ole Miss last night, 17 and 18-point favorites. And Lane Kiffin and Jackson Dart said, hold my beer. This is what you do as a big favorite. I know they didn't make the big dance. Matt, give me your final impression of this Ole Miss season. I mean, on paper and what he had there for talent and how that defense was playing for part of this year, they would have been a real dangerous team in this format.
Yeah, I think the one word would be disappointment. you look at this Ole Miss team, I still think they're the best team in the SEC. You match them up against anybody else. Yeah, they lost to Florida. Yeah, they lost to Kentucky. You can't do that. But at the end of the day, we've seen now kind of how it has unfolded for the SEC, and I don't think they're very good. You can't tell me that Tennessee deserved to be in over Ole Miss outside of just what Tennessee's record was. And really, I think Ole Miss they shot themselves in the foot every time they get comfortable and you feel like, okay, this is a legit playoff team. It's big game Lane, and he just cannot get over that. Yeah, they blew out. They beat whoever it was last night so bad that I can't even
Duke,
remember.
Duke.
Duke.
With their third string quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, congratulations. You took care of business and you played your starters and you did what you were supposed to do. It's too little too late.
Hey, Q, you got about a minute till you have to roll there. Any leans on the weekend or early leans on next week?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I've already jumped on Notre Dame money line. I also did a Notre Dame teaser with Ohio State. I just think Ohio State's – they took that Michigan loss personal. I think they got over the fact that – I think last year's message was they were soft when Michigan, beat them. I think they were trying to prove that after, the last 4 years. I think now they're like, hey, look, we're done with that narrative. Let's just go win a national title for Ryan Day. They read the clippings. Like, everybody wants his head cut off in Columbus. So the players are kind of rallying around him. I think it's going to be Ohio State, Notre Dame. Matt's sitting on some really good futures he posted in the chat with those matchups. I hope one of them lands for him. I'm going to be pretty selective. I'll be honest. I started working on college baseball stuff last night. So those are my only two plays. And, hey, in 3 weeks, our guide comes out. So got to get ready. There's lots of work.
Well, make sure I'm one of the first persons that gets that guide.
So absolutely.
Free release. And Q, go take care of business. Thank you so much. Have a blessed weekend, and we'll catch up with you next Friday.
Thanks. I'll see you next week, Jeff.
All right. Elijah, quick commercial break. And then when we come back, we're going to talk to the one and only Mr. Nick and maybe any selections that he might have for this weekend. And, of course, next week. We'll be right back.
2,000 years long, we will never settle. Hard days, no way, with a heavy metal. No time, no fail, won't stop here. Like a torch to a flame when it burns hot. Come on, baby, higher.
All right, Nick, the stage is yours.
Yeah, let me start with the Notre Dame game. You know where I'm at on that. But I think where people should pay more attention is the total. I was surprised to see this one open up at, I think, like 49.5, which was higher than the Georgia one. I think this is going to be even lower. I think it's been bet down now to about 47. I don't know what you can see there, Jeff, but I think it's down to around that 47 range. I think we see a similar type score where it's going to be like a 23-14, 21-17 type game between those two. So I think the under is probably the play. And then I do think Notre Dame wins. Focusing on Ohio State, Texas, I'm not touching this one yet. I think this one's opened at 4. And I think you mentioned recency bias earlier. As soon as it opened up, everybody just saw what they did to Oregon. And me, like, that thing shot up to 6.5 within minutes. And I'm just like, calm down, people. Like, let's actually look at numbers like this. Like, let's not be so just instinctive and just base it on the fact it's already come down half a point. I think Vegas knows what they're doing. I think it's going to be back around that 4.5, 5 range by kickoff. So depending on which side that everybody's on here, I would say probably take Texas now if you want them. If you really want Ohio State, I would say wait until later next week. I think just because I think it drops back down.
Quick commercial, Elijah, and we'll get Matt sucked.
Well, Q mentioned it. I am on a couple of futures tickets. I've got the exacta Texas Notre Dame 14-1, and then Notre Dame Ohio State 18-1. Both of those to win 10 units. So I'm rooting for Notre Dame. I'll probably still end up betting Penn State. I think they'll keep it close. Our website has Penn State about a 2.5, 3-point dog. And then Texas, Ohio State, interestingly enough, we've got Texas favored slightly, 19.3 to 19.1. So maybe we can get a couple of good games here in the it's about time college football semifinal. But I don't know. I'm not going to bet this Texas Ohio State line yet. I think Ohio State could dominate them, but it depends on if Quinn Ewers can show up and throw for another 300 and something yards against a much better defense than Arizona State. But as of right now, Ohio State looks far and away like the best team in the country. And that's unfortunate.
And I'll close this segment with this is I think Sark was stuck. In other words, 14-3 in a blink of an eye.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like he had the game plan that he was going to go. Now he's got a 14-3 lead, and he's looking at the clock and saying, well, these guys aren't going to be able to score that much on us, and almost like took the foot off the gas and almost like played not to lose, Nick.
How many times have we seen him do this, though? Like that, you cannot do that. Do you think Ohio State did that against Oregon? I mean, I don't know. I just don't trust Texas, just like I didn't trust Georgia, Tennessee, anybody else in the SEC right now. I until they prove it, I'm going to be a doubter of Texas's legitimacy here.
Last question. I'll throw it to both of you. Supposedly, Archie's got a $6 million offer. You believe in, and if so, where is it?
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss?
I think Tennessee's on the board, too.
Tennessee's on the board. All right. Nick, tell them where they can find all your work.
Yeah, in Halfcoat 413 on X, also on Instagram at in Halfcoat. We also have a free Discord where we chat to everybody that follows us, give out our picks. Very important time of year. College baseball, as Q mentioned, is coming up. Guide comes out in 3 weeks. I started yesterday, rewatching games from last season. So yeah, I have 3 games in now to the College World Series from last year. Literally just watched the NC State Kentucky game this morning. So start that prepping, and yeah, we are ready to go.
Matt?
I'm at Grissom on X, and then our website, collegefootballinsiders.com. And then I did bet one in this bowl game we get today. North Texas, Texas State. Texas State, a 13.5-point favorite. I like the Bobcats here. I think you could lay it first half, split units, and the second half. But the bet that I did make is an interesting one. It was Texas State to score first and win. They're minus 400 on the money line, but this bet here, minus 137 to score first and win. So that doesn't really make sense to me that they're minus 400 on the money line, yet you can take them to score first and win at minus 137. Okay, let's see if this loses. But
someone was bored.
They rolled North Texas. North Texas has a ton of opt-outs. What'd you say, Nick?
I said someone was bored this morning and needed something to do. That's deep.
Yeah, they hung that line. Like, what are we doing here?
Gentlemen, have a
and it's just score first, not even a touchdown, a field goal. It's whatever.
Safety. How about a safety?
Yeah, just get the ball and score points. And now we're sitting on a minus 400 money line favorite.
Guys, have a great weekend. Nick, congrats. Great job. Win, lose, or draw. We knew you'd be here. I will obviously have you guys here next week as well. And then baseball right around the corner. When you're writing up your preview section, you know, when you get to that UConn Huskies team, be easy on them. I'm hearing some people say, look out for the Huskies.
Yeah, they're replacing a lot. So it's going to be interesting doing a deep dive on them. That's a little bit what I'm afraid of for them this year. But I mean, they'll still be competitive. Like their coaching staff now that they've got in always brings in great like they're on a recruiting tear. They're able to somehow in the Northeast actually get some transfers as well. So yeah, I don't think they're going anywhere. I'm just not sure they're quite a super regional team like they were last year.
We don't rebuild, we reload here. So
Love it.
Guys, have a great weekend. Thank you so much. Elijah, quick commercial break. When we come back, Adam Trigger at Wager Talk talking some college hoops. See you soon.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, guys. TPCSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app. It's time to talk some hoops. What better person to talk hoops, especially on a Friday, the one and only Mr. Adam Trigger.
What's going on, Jeff? How's it going?
Good morning. Happy New Year. How was your New Year?
It was good. I really didn't do much. So my New Year consisted of me driving out to Olean, New York during the day. Got to see the A10 opener for St. Bonaventure. Great game against VCU. That was New Year's Eve, and it's only about a 3-hour drive. So I was home by about 7:30, and then just kind of hung out, watched Penn State, Boise. Unfortunately, was on Boise in that game. I don't know. I feel like I probably had the wrong side, Jeff, in the football game, but at the same time, just needed to finish off a kind of a nonsense drive or a backdoor cover. So that was a little disappointing. But yeah, college hoops been going well, and looking forward to chatting about a couple games today.
Yeah, I was doing some homework. I almost jumped in my car too. I think it was New Year's Eve, and I'm glad I didn't. Providence College, who I've gone to a lot of games, about an hour tops for me. Great venue, great spot. You're right on top of the crowd. Hosted Marquette, and Marquette was I don't know, 8-point favorite, and just blew them out of the gym. And at one point early in the game, they had like 6 or 7 steals. So you know how my brain works. I'm starting to watch Marquette, who I'm a big Smart fan. I love their team. I think they're a dangerous team. But the guard play and the steals and the pressure on the guards, I've started putting 2 and 2 together. And I have to ask you, I think UConn's going to have problems with them, especially they don't have that strong guard play that they've had the last 2 years, especially last year, in handling the ball and handling pressure. Am I crazy to say that, Adam?
No, I think it's fair to say UConn's going to have trouble with the upper, like the top, few teams in the Big East. The funny thing is, the last time we were on this show and we talked about UConn, I kind of said, the teams I don't really want to I don't want to take them. I don't want to fade them against DePaul, right? And of course, they played DePaul last weekend. I don't remember what the final was in that game, but what I watched of it, they were up pretty big. I'm assuming that now I got to go check and make sure they didn't get a crazy comeback. But no, okay, so yeah, they ended up they barely covered. So they barely covered. They were up much bigger in that game. Yeah,
I want to tell you a funny story about that game. We had DePaul team total over, and they couldn't throw it in the ocean in the first half, and they put up 48 in the second half, and they got the over. It was 66 in a hook, and they got to 68.
Yeah, that's so now you've got UConn 7 straight wins. They're coming up with a home game against Providence, which again, that's probably not the spot I necessarily want to go against them, but the games at Nova and at Georgetown might be tricky against the number. But it looks like UConn, like you're looking at their schedule right now, Jeff, like that they might be able to rack up a few wins here in the early going. I mean, Providence, Villanova, Georgetown, Creighton at home, Butler at home. That game at Xavier will be very interesting since Xavier came in and gave them a game at UConn. But that's the stretch that gets interesting. At Xavier, DePaul game at home, but at Marquette, then they play St. John's. They have to go out to Omaha to play Creighton. The road game at Seton Hall is never easy. They're going to grind and, will be a tough team against the numbers. So I almost kind of hope that UConn just goes off and strings along this big win streak and this big cover, because it'll set up a spot similar It's actually similar to last year. I don't know if you remember the Creighton game last year, which was like the home run spot to play against UConn, and it worked out. It was a pretty easy win. So I'll try to find one of those come February.
If I remember correctly, they lost the first game of the Big East at Seton Hall. They sheeted all the way till senior day at Creighton, and they got rolled.
Yep, that is correct.
I get the Ken Palm up right now in the four factors. The four factors that everyone talks about as we get closer to March, and the four factors to get to the Final Four and hopefully cut the nets down. Auburn, Connecticut, Iowa State, Alabama, Gonzaga, Villanova, which I've watched them and I do not. Baylor, Purdue, Florida, Duke. Other than Villanova, which I don't think belongs here, but what do I know? Anything stick out to you there in the four factor?
Well, I think Villanova not belonging there would be the main thing. Still amazed that they were able to beat Butler on the other night, 22-1 run to close the game or something like that. But again, nothing really sticks out that like those are the teams that kind of belong there in my opinion right now. And again, we've talked about this for a couple of weeks. The next couple of weeks are really where you're going to see teams. I think you're gonna have a much better picture of what these teams are 3 weeks from now when you've got 5, 6, 7 conference games, because I've always thought this, Jeff, at least in the modern era, I guess, like going back 10, 15, 10 years, we'll call it 10 years. College basketball is 3 different seasons, right? It's non-conference play, which is like basically the start of the season through Christmas. It's conference play, which is, even though they play some early conference games, it's like New Year's through the end of the season, and then it's postseason. And they're 3 almost entirely different seasons where you have to have a reset of sorts if you're handicapping this stuff to an extent, right? Like you need to be able to say, okay, this is what happened in November, December, but like these teams are a lot of these teams are 0-0, right? Same mentality when you get to the conference tournament. And it's like, all right, this is what's happened this year, but we almost have to treat this team like they have the same chance to win the conference tournament or the NCAA tournament as anyone else. That's the challenge, right? Is trying to figure out how much stock are you going to put into what you saw in November, December, relative to what you thought the teams were, relative to what you think they are going forward. It's the never-ending challenge of handicapping this sport.
Last question before we get into your 2 games that you want to break down. I know you're a small school up in the New York area, but as an overall look, what conference right now has surprised you with their start? A team or 2 maybe to look out for that has surprised you, and what conference that you thought might have been a lot better has gotten off to a slow start and is disappointed?
Well, no question. The disappointment is the ACC. There's just a lot of teams that I think are far worse than I thought they might be coming into the season. Like, I'll give you a group of teams that, coming into the ACC season, you had UConn and Duke were pretty much the 2 teams up near the top, right? And then it was like a lot of people liked Wake Forest, and then Pat Kelsey's at Louisville. Miami has a new roster. Wake Forest was a very trendy pick, and none of these teams have panned out to be any good, right? Like, throw Virginia in there, lose Tony Bennett. They've kind of been, not very good. Syracuse has been terrible. Like, so it's got to be the ACC. Like, just from a disappointment standpoint. I mean, some of these teams, I said this the other day ahead of breaking down North Carolina, Louisville on New Year's Day. It's the same mentality, right? Like the season is starting over for a lot of them, and I think that there's some merit to that. But what you can't ignore is the fact that, like, collectively, the conference, I mean, even North Carolina hasn't been even close to as good as people expected them to be. And then they get run out by Louisville on New Year's Day. Go to the bottom half of that league, the Virginia Techs, NC State was in the Final Four last year. They're really not very good this year. Virginia Tech's awful. It's just not a great league. And then I guess we can use this as a segue. The league I've actually been most impressed with so far, and that I think is flying under the radar, is the Atlantic 10. Because, none of it's odd because you don't have like your token ranked team here, Jeff. Like the A10 will usually get someone in the top 25 by this point in the season. Last year it was Dayton. There's usually one. But if you look at the A10 right now, I'm just going to read off some non-conference or some records as it stands right now. You have St. Bonaventure's 13-1. Dayton is 11-3. George Mason 10-4. St. Joe's 10-4. The one that everyone thought was going to be like the best, St. Louis, is only 8-6, but they have one of the highest ratings out of anyone. And then you've got teams like Rhode Island 11-2, George Washington 11-3, Davidson 10-4. The one that we were talking about winning this whole thing coming into the season was VCU, and they're only 10-4. They've arguably, the teams like VCU and St. Louis have maybe been not as impressive in the non-conference, but they're still in there already at 10 wins. A team like Loyola Chicago loses a couple guys. Now they're 9-4, but they were like 9-1 before a couple injuries. So I would say like the A10 has impressed me with the depth in that league. Like some of those teams, Rhode Island, GW, like not expected to have good seasons this year. And you can say what you want, but like about like who they've played, but a lot of them have win. I'm just going off memory here, top of my head. A lot of these teams have wins over respectable teams from other conferences. So the Atlantic 10's been really impressive to me so far.
Well, you're going to break down two games today. And we'll, like you said, perfect segue. St. Joe's at St. Louis on Ken Palm right now. He's got St. Joe's 77-76 tonight. Thoughts?
Yeah, so St. Joe's, these are actually probably the two most interesting cases in this league for me, because you had St. Joe's start the season off with a loss to Central Connecticut State, right? Like probably as bad of a loss as you're going to have all season. But like this same team went out and beat Texas Tech on a neutral early in the year, hung with Texas. This is what I'm talking about, like decent wins. St. Joe's beat Villanova. Like a lot of these teams have the good wins, and now you get in a conference play where they're all playing each other. What I'm looking for in this game, so St. Louis, I'm going to backtrack for a minute, because St. Louis was the team. Josh Schertz comes over from Indiana State. He brings Robbie Avila with him. This was like everyone's consensus pick to win this league this year. And part of my handicap prior to the season on this show was kind of wanting to go against that a little bit in year one for Josh Schertz, and that's why I sort of settled on VCU. The other team I thought had a real chance to win this league was St. Joe's, but they're difficult to bet on a game-to-game basis because they're very heavily reliant on the three-point shot. But that being said, their guards are so good that I think they could play here, and I actually make them the favorite in this game. So I see a pretty decent, enough of a line discrepancy here. I think right now St. Joe's is plus 2.5, where you could make a case for taking St. Joe's. I haven't done it yet, but I think St. Joe's is probably the play. St. Louis is very soft defensively, Jeff. Like that's a big issue for them. They're outside the top 200, and you cannot just let these St. Joe's guards like Eric Reynolds, Xavier Brown came back for the UMass game. That's huge. He was out for like 3 weeks. So now you've got Brown back. Simpson, you can't let that trio just do what they want with the ball. Like Reynolds will cook you for 30 plus if you do that. Like that's where I'm a little bit concerned with St. Louis and their inability to defend, because I think St. Joe's is going to be able to score. And they have a post presence in Rasheer Fleming that, it's not just all guard play for them. They can get some points in the paint. They are just heavily reliant on jump shooting. Now, on the other side, you've got Josh Schertz and his 5-out attack, which has been very heavily praised. It's a super efficient offense, but the reality is they're not there yet. They're not running that offense like Indiana State was running that offense last year. Avila missed a few games, right? So he's had to take some time to get back in the mix, being healthy. And so I just don't know that their offense is so sharp yet that you can that you're getting the full potential from the St. Louis team. and St. Joe's, they defend. Like their defense, actually, if you look at the numbers, their defense has improved last year, the year before to last year, and then last year to this year has improved each year. Lang has that team playing good defense. They don't have anything crazy inside, so they will get beat up inside a little bit, but they contest shots. Their defensive rating, I think I saw Evan Myers got this like 63rd in the country. I was surprised it was that high, but I don't disagree with it. They're a scrappy team. It's just, again, St. Louis, foul line, 64% as a team. So they do a lot of things right now to lose games, in my opinion. If you go look at St. Louis's results so far this year, they've played their way to losses at times, and recently, even with Avila back. So I think the wrong team is favored in this one. The only reason I haven't bet this yet, Jeff, I have to like pump the brakes. I'm worried about stepping into so St. Louis looked really good over the weekend against Fordham. I don't want to be on the wrong end of them figuring it out, but I'll tell you right now, they shouldn't be favored here. Like St. Joe's is the better of these two teams. I've got St. Joe's a slight favorite, especially with Xavier Brown back in the lineup. So this is one I'll be contemplating throughout the day. But man, if you were to give me a St. Joe's +3 or even a 3.5, I think I'd have to jump in. At 2.5, I still think it's a pretty good bet.
Well, you're a man of my heart, and Pop DiBiase, may he rest in peace. I tell you, every Friday, we used to do a Friday show with the small schools in the Ivy League. And the other game you want to break down to, there wasn't a week that we weren't talking about the Manhattan, Jaspers, Niagara, and you want to break down Manhattan at Siena. Ken Palm right now has Siena 74-71 winners.
Yeah, there was good old days for Manhattan. I think it was it Luis Flores who was the guard that took them to the NCAA tournament. Yeah, they haven't had good teams like that in a while, but Manhattan basketball definitely, and really before I get into the breakdown, you could say that about this whole MAC conference. It's kind of sad at being someone that went so I was at Siena as a student from 2004 to 2008. I grew up in the Capital Region, going to Siena games in the 90s, and pretty much have gone ever since. And the conference used to be much, much better. Like the caliber of team in the conference was a lot better. So it's just been down really the last decade or so, pretty much the last decade minus the Pitino Iona teams. And now that Pitino left, it's kind of down again, which is too bad. But hopefully, some of these teams come back around. I think that kind of starts our handicap. I do think Siena tends to get a little bit too much love at times for the name on the front of the jersey. And it goes back to what you were saying, Jeff, all those years, mid 90s to all the way up to 2010, when Fran McCaffrey decided he was going to leave for Iowa. Siena was at the top of the conference. And I still think they get a lot of respect in the market because they have the biggest fan base and they've just been a recognizable name. I was hoping they'd get more market respect here. Because I really kind of wanted to play Manhattan in this spot. And the reason why, Manhattan has a fantastic starting five. And a lot of people are not tuned into this because coming into the year, if you read any MAC preview, it was Canisius and it was Manhattan at the bottom of this league. So they're pretty much on a game-to-game basis. Manhattan is priced as the bottom option in this league. But that was before Will Sidnor came into the mix. And Will Sidnor is a freshman from the Bronx that Manhattan is fortunate enough to have right now, Jeff, because I don't know if he'll be on that team at this time next year because he's that good. And he's probably going to end up in the portal playing for a bigger school. He's 6'8". I was just down at the Wagner game when they played Manhattan the other day. He just looks like a high major player. I mean, you just don't see 6'8" guys with that type of skill and upside in the MAC very long anymore. It's another reason that the league is down. But you put him with that Manhattan starting five, they're going to beat some teams, and they're going to be a very good underdog, which they've been. I believe they now have 4 straight underdog covers if you go back to the Virginia game. And I know that may be on their road games, but recently, the Wagner game I was at, they were a 2-point underdog. They won that game outright. They went and beat St. Peter's as a pretty big underdog, won that game outright. They went down to Presbyterian, which is another decent team from the Big South, and managed to win there. So they've been really good in the underdog role. And I was again, this is another one. I was hoping for a couple more points. If you were going to give me like 5.5 here, which is what I was really kind of wanted, Manhattan would be a no-brainer play for me. I think the market, the odds makers, not the market, but the odds makers are starting to figure out that Manhattan has 4 or 5 guys that could play with any team in this league. And that's why you're seeing a 3.5 here. Now, what could happen is Siena just beat Cornell the other day. Great win for them. 13-point underdog. They win the game outright. I would love to see Siena get bet as the day goes on. Maybe push this up to 4, 4.5, 5, because I don't see a huge difference between these two teams. You have the starting 5 for Manhattan is just as good as the starting 5 for Siena. Siena really has tried to slow it down at times this year, and it's like Manhattan prefers to play fast, even though they don't have a deep rotation. Siena has been willing to run with like the teams like Cornell and Holy Cross because playing slow worked out so poorly for them against St. Bonaventure. So I think they're in a little bit of a conundrum here because if they play fast, it's kind of how Manhattan wants to play. If they slow it way down, Manhattan's going to be able to keep their starting 5 on the floor pretty much all game. And then you're in one-on-one situations with Sidnor, who's probably the best player on the floor. So I like Manhattan plus the points. I was really hoping for a couple more points. So again, another one. Make sure you're following me on Twitter at Adam Trigger WT. At Adam Trigger WT. Changed the handle a little while back. Make sure you're following me on Twitter because if I play either of those, I'll let you know as the day goes on. But these are 2 plays that I have my eye on for today.
Well, as we always wrap up this segment of the show, Adam, what we like to do is throw you a nice little alley-oop where you can tell everyone where they can find your work at Wager Talk.
Yeah, so to get all of my picks, the bets I actually make, those are available every day at Wager Talk, at wagertalk.com, the only place you're going to find those. If you're following me on social media, specifically X, at Adam Trigger WT, I do post quite a bit of stuff on there for free. I do a free pick show every day called On the Clock with 4 or 5 free picks. So giving you angles to look at similar to the ones we just talked about. Oftentimes I end up, I'll disclose a play I actually make on there. So, it's good value to tune in. And, but yeah, it's college hoops gone really good for me since about mid-December. About a nice run. Had split yesterday, the day before. Had a nice winner with Greensboro. The day before that, had a nice winner with St. Bonaventure. So finding value in some of these lesser leagues and just trying to pick off wins here and there. I've got one play up for tonight, and I may add others. So make sure you're following me and check out my stuff at Wager Talk.
Adam, always a pleasure to end our week here with you at 11:30 to 12. Best of luck this weekend. Enjoy yourself. Safe travels up in New York if you're getting that snow or potentially.
Yeah, we got it yesterday.
Okay. So
a lot of snow and wind here yesterday. Yeah.
Stay warm, and we'll catch up with you next Friday.
Take care, Jeff.
Take care. Adam Trigger, go follow him at Adam Trigger WT. Go check out his work, obviously, at Wager Talk. Elijah, quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll wrap it up. Busy morning to start. At 10:15, I was with Andrew McGinnis at McGinnis Picks at Wager Talk, talking some NHL there. Come right back at 11 a.m. for the NCAA Insiders, 4 Men in a Box, and of course, Adam Trigger. Not sure if we're going to be running the show at 1:30 with CXO Adam Travis Geiger. At WagerWire, they were at the Rose Bowl, him and Calvin Smith. Calvin's got a huge ticket, just needs Ohio State to win it all, and he hits 2 big parlay tickets. So we connected with Calvin. We're going to try to get Calvin on at the start of next week before, of course, the Cotton Bowl, where right now Ohio State is 6-point favorites against Texas. And as we talked, Notre Dame is 1.5-point favorites against Penn State. So keep an eye on our timeline there. I gave out a special to on Adam. Jeez, hit myself here on Andrew's channel that I'm going to offer here. We had an amazing month of December. Plus 29 units in mostly college basketball team totals. We've cracked Da Vinci's code. And if you go to our website at eastcoastsportsinvestors.com, top right, plans and pricing, scroll all the way down. There's a retail price. We just started our 10th year of public service. January 1st, 2015 was our start. $375 a month retail. That's our retail price. That's never going to change. It's been the same for 10 years. There's a VIP service. We call it our own gym membership, $3 a day. If you can't afford $3 a day for all the work that we do, well, it's $99 a month. You just sign up, and every month you get hit for $99. You get our plays every day sent to your cell phone via text and email. So whether you're at work, at the gym, at a wedding, on the golf course, boom, there's our plays there. We're going to offer a special that we don't do very often, and I did it for Andrew and his crew. The retail price, $375. Sign up today for $375, and we're going to take you through the Stanley Cup. We're going to take you through the Super Bowl, obviously the championship in college football, through March Madness. We're going to give you the Masters. We're going to give you the first month and 2 months of baseball. We're going to get you through the Kentucky Derby as well. And when the Stanley Cup's done, you're done. So it's for pennies on the dollar each day. $375 1 month takes you straight through the Stanley Cup. If you have any questions, head on over to Twitter or X at EC Sports Invest. Send me a DM. Otherwise, sign up right now and get started today. Can't do it without Mr. Elijah Cox, the best in the business. Thank you so much. Thank everyone for watching and listening. The weekend is here. Enjoy yourself and stay tuned.